What's up, guys? Welcome back to Burn the Ship, the podcast that inspires entrepreneurs to go all in on their business. And today we have on Sam Gross. Thank you so much for coming in and talking with me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. This is great to be here.
Tell me a little bit about your business.
Yeah, so the business I'm working with right now is called the My Brand, and it was founded by Jason Douglas 5 years ago. And what we do is software as a service. And what sets us apart is that everything is fully integrated with AI. So if you aren't familiar with software as a service, basically all your needs are being consolidated to one platform as a business owner, because you need to be able to take payments, you need to be able to run websites and funnels, you need to be able to run email campaigns. All the essential software to your business gets consolidated to the one platform. So that's what we do, and what we specialize in is integrating all that with AI. So you can have AI build your websites, you can have AI respond to your text, emails, Google reviews, whatever it is. So we're all about making things more efficient for our clients.
That's great. So when did you guys start integrating into AI? Because I know it seems like a newer thing, but it's kind of not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's been around for a while. Jason started the company 5 years ago. Jason has just tons of interesting experience. He's worked in the past with Apple and with Twitter, so he spent a while out in Silicon Valley. And then he was running 6 stores here in Georgia. So as you break it, we fix it, like the iPhone repair stores. And for him, he realized that the software that he was using to manage all of these different stores became more valuable than the actual store location. So he sold them, invested in the software. And from the very start, what's made what he's doing so scalable, and the reason that the business is growing, is that he built it off of the OpenAI tech stack. So you have Amazon Web Services is providing like the servers and the platforms and background for all the websites and things online. I think Amazon Web Services accounts for like 50% of the internet. So all these internet companies, you've got kind of this layering where it's Amazon Web Services is what OpenAI is sitting on top of. So you have a tech stack. And then he pays for a developer account with OpenAI and uses their tools and updates his software with their tools. So as things scale up, you continue to scale with them. So you're fully integrated all the way.
Cool. So how did you get started with Jason? What did you do before you got into this field?
Yeah, so I had an interesting introduction into the entire field. I'm a new graduate. I graduated May last year from Ball State University in Indiana. I've always had a really strong interest in entrepreneurship. So after my freshman year, rather than go get a tech-oriented internship, I figured I had a degree in computer science. I was going to go spend the summer knocking on doors with a company called Southwestern Advantage. And it was really cool. It was really hard. We sold educational resources. And I learned a lot. I actually sucked pretty badly at the job my first summer. And anyone that's done sales work, especially like door to door, you know that it can just be grueling. Like it could be a chore. But I learned so much from it, and I knew that it was so important, even today's world, to have those sales skills. And I knew if I wanted to run a business in the future, that I was going to need to have those skills. So I thought, you know what, over my next couple summers in school, I could get an internship that turns into a job. But I thought it would be more valuable for me to invest in the skills that I needed to do what I actually wanted to do once I was done with school. So I did that. I actually graduated early. I graduated when I was 20, which was pretty cool.
Wow, yeah.
So I was done with school. I sold for a third summer out of school. So it was fall of last year. I was in a position where I had kind of a high cash value and flexibility because I didn't have these commitments. But I was also inexperienced. I didn't have the knowledge to just go out and directly start a business. So I thought to myself, I would love to just start a software company if I could. That would be my ideal. But instead, I think I should go get a job for a year or two, learn enough about the industry where I can turn around and go start one. Right. So I moved to Georgia with that intention because there are a lot more tech, a lot more jobs in this area here in Georgia. I had good connections in the area through my summers of sales work. And I met Jason Douglas And just the way that he did business, we just connected right away. He's just so technically knowledgeable, and I'm so curious about all the stuff. I'm the kid that was always, at home after class, like looking up more code and doing side projects and all. So we connected on that right away because he's a total tech guy. And I just really liked the way that he did business, and he had a lot of use for my skill set because he was trying to scale up. So it just worked really well for us to partner, for me to sell and build a software, and for him to hand contracts off to me as they come up. So it's been a really, really cool experience, and I've learned a whole lot. And it's great that you just never have like the same day to day, because some days I may be dealing with a client that's like, they're paying hardly anything. And then, other days out of the week, you're sending emails to like $30-40 million companies. You're like, oh, this is crazy. This is like real entrepreneurship. But that's how I got into it, and I'm really grateful that I did.
Yeah, doing door knocking is by far, like a lot of people say, if you can go door knocking, you are going to be good at sales because you get rejected so much. And I mean, that's how our CEO started. We still do that. Like all of our sales reps still do that. And then you get to the point where you don't necessarily have to. So getting to that point is awesome, and you learn a ton. So that's great that you were able to think that through, because most people would have gone straight into an internship so that it's a safety thing, right? Like you go into an internship so you are honestly guaranteed a job afterwards. And you're not guaranteed a job going around and door knocking trying to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and there's no guarantees on door to door. It's like each door, each week, each day. It's like it's up to you to make things happen, and there's no guarantee when you're an entrepreneur. So I'd say even like my first month or so working with Jason, I didn't make any money. That's because I didn't know enough. I was in training, I was learning. You're doing sales, and then suddenly you have these weeks where you're like, whoa, I made more money this week than I made any week out of working for somebody else doing sales work, right? So sales and entrepreneurship really go hand in hand, but it's cool to develop that sales skill because most of the time it's just a prerequisite for building your business. So
our audience is upcoming entrepreneurs, and one thing that I like to hit on is what were some of the things that you failed at that you've overcome that they can learn from and hopefully avoid doing in the future?
Yeah. So I'll go back on my experience selling books for this one. My first summer, I mean, that was just the definition of failure. Fail until you succeed. I remember my first week, I was so obtuse and I just didn't like talking to people at the door. I was so awkward. I just stand straight up. I knocked on 600 doors that week, my very first week ever selling.
Oh my God.
I talked to
That's nuts.
370 people. And then I managed to get in the door. Well, actually not in the door. I got in the door 6 times that week. I got a sit down on the porch, which we also counted to because that's better, 12 times. And then I had 6 customers total. So, that I remember finishing that week and I was pretty proud of my effort. But I got home on that Sunday after I'd, gone out with friends, and it was like 2 p.m. And I just remember sitting down on my bed and just crying. It's just, that's kind of a mind-blowing week. You're like, oh my God, this is such a skill gap. And, by the time I ended my book selling career, like my very last day, I talked to 10 people, sold 6 people, and made about twice as much money in that day as I made my entire first week ever selling. So,
wow.
That's kind of a fun, contrast summer to summer, and each summer you about double your growth. But another thing that stands out to me, that experience, like you've got to go through that failure. You've got to have goals that you're actually trying to pursue. Because you have the goal, you aim for it, you miss, and then you hit the mark, right? So I feel like doing sales work is kind of an easy form of entrepreneurship because your goal is set for you. Your goal is sell as much as you possibly can, right? So I would see these people, I was started my second summer, I was moving about 100 units a week. So I was making a little less than $1,000. I'm like, this sucks because I have friends that are making like $8,000 a week. So I spent like 6 weeks that summer just doing so poorly. And what I realized was interfering with it was just my mentality towards the entire business. You just have to have a really, for one, strong-minded mentality where you're trying to persuade people to see things your way, and you aren't getting self-conscious. You aren't allowing the way that people treat you to affect the way that you treat other people. So that's huge. And that feeds right into integrity. Like if you really want to do well in sales, you just have to be perfectly upfront with people about what it is that you're doing and how you do it. So I remember my first summer, for example, I used to tell people that I was showing educational resources when I would approach them at the door. And then I got, my second and third summer, I was like, I'm the one selling educational resources. And then from that point on in the conversation, they're like, oh, I'm dealing with a salesperson. And there's never any forward, backwards. I never got to the end of my presentation and had people go, wait, this is something I have to buy. Definitely happened first summer around. So I think for most of the entrepreneurs and salespeople out there, you'd be amazed at if you have some boldness about going out and approaching and meeting people that you need to talk to. And you do it in a way that's a lot of integrity. You tell them exactly who you are, what you're doing, and what you want. You'll be amazed at how many sales just roll in so quickly. From that point on in that second summer, I just remember that being the most drastic change because I was doing worse than my first at the start of it. And then I was quadrupling my results towards the end of it. So that's a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, that's extremely important to be not necessarily in the gray when you're trying to speak to somebody, because they're going to really respect you if you're just straight up black and white. This is what I'm doing. This is what it is. And then they'll be like, oh, okay. So you're not some shady salesman just trying to get me roped in, put me in your pipeline, and
exactly
try to continue to sell me over.
And that's
over
what
again.
I tell myself between every door. I'm like, I'm not just a sleazy salesperson.
Yeah. Because saying that you work in sales, it can literally go one of two ways. They can think that you're intelligent and you're, an entrepreneur and you're focus based, or they can be like, you're slimy.
Yeah. And you're just going to get that from people one way or another when you're doing sales work of any kind. Like you're going to have people that think what you're doing is just the coolest thing in the universe. And then there are going to be a lot of people that are just like, no.
Yeah.
I think what's helpful too, if you've never done sales before, I know going into my first summer, I was worried about all the harsh rejections, like door slams and people are mad or whatever. That almost never happens. And I think what's actually emotionally difficult is just getting a whole lot of polite no's where you're like, I really need sales. I really need somebody to be interested. And these look like normal, nice people. And they're like, I'm sorry, buddy, we're not into it. And just close the door. You're like, ah.
Yeah. Yeah, that is most of the time. People are polite, but I'll get people that are straight up like, nope, not interested. I'm like,
yep.
All right, see you later.
That hurt me my first summer. And then my second and third ones, I was like, all right, that's really funny, actually, that someone was mean to me.
Yeah, you learn to laugh at it, right? You're like,
Yeah.
all right, on to the next one. Because you can knock on 100 doors, but those 10 that do say yes are vital. And they'll make up for the other 90 doors that you went to. That 10% is key.
Yeah, and it's so worth it, too. And really also the biggest component from a technical standpoint of sales, because that was kind of emotional advice. But if you want to talk about how you really elevate your game with sales and where it's translated from where I was selling to what I'm doing now, is to use people's names. That's incredibly important, and not just use their name in a regular conversation, because that's maybe a good thing. But you're talking about names of customers. So over the summer, I would run this Facebook page where I would post with each customer that I had. I'd sell them books, And then I'd also deliver the books on the spot. So you have like a stack of books. You'd be like, such and such, Dave and Betsy just got a bunch of books for the kids. Hooray, they're awesome parents. And then you have them repost it. And that spreads. And then when you get to the next person's door, they're like, oh, I've seen you on Facebook with this and that person. And, door-to-door sales can be really, really difficult. But the last town that I worked in, my final summer, I changed my approach from being like a 1-minute thing to being like, hey, how's it going? Can I come inside? And they're like, yeah, just because everyone knows you. So you become a little town celebrity. But yeah, the importance of your marketing and of your customer names. So I would use the names of people that had bought from me. I'd be like, oh yeah, what Miss Clarkson really liked about these is that it would help her with the old and the new way of math. And that's really powerful when it's people that they actually know, your clients. So like in the last town that I was working in, the library had bought from me, the chief of police had bought from me, the first grade teacher, the principal of the elementary school. And then you have a lot of authority when you're talking about anything educational. Your sales get a whole lot quicker. You spend more time with people, just super easy job. Way, way easier than first summer. And then how that skill translates to now, I had this really, really good client off of a personal connection that had a specific service in the finance industry. It's called, if anyone's familiar, Infinite Banking Practitioners. It's actually a big network. There are about 10 or so of these infinite banking practitioners in every state. You have to be licensed for it. It's based off the teachings of a guy that put it all together in the 1990s. And when I call these people up, I'm like, rather than just, hey, I'm a random salesperson that's found you on the internet, I'm like, hey, I've been doing the websites for a lot of the infinite bankers. And they're like, oh, really? Who have you done the websites for? And then I'm like, name my client. And they're like, oh, that's cool. I know him. And then, and suddenly you've got like a bunch of these guys.
Right. Yeah, that personalization is important for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really good advice. What do you see happening with this company in the future?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And that's really what I was most excited to talk about on this podcast today. I was thinking about this last night. I think that Jason is really visionary because this whole model of software, like the world is changing. So I really didn't know about all this stuff until I worked with him and I'd gotten a look into so many of these businesses' softwares and what they're doing and their current processes. And basically there's a change in how people are working now versus how they worked 20 years ago. So as an example, 20 years ago, if you're a $30 million business, right, you have a budget that you can set aside for software where you say, we really need software to do this and this and that for the company. So maybe that's to collect payments, to track your inventory, things like that. So you set aside that budget, you hire your own in-house programmers, they write the code for you, and then that's cheaper than having to shell out for a company that, creates the code and pays their own, programmers. Mm-hmm. So you're like, if I'm a big enough company, I'm going to have my in-house employees have my own software. Well, the way that the world is changing now is that all the software has been written. Like everything that you need as any standard sort of a business has already been created. So if you're trying to run a coffee shop, you already have payment portals, you already have website builders, like all the software is out there, you just have to pay for it. And so what that means is that it's so inefficient now for you to hire your own employee to create code that you're way, way better off buying the code from somewhere else and then just implementing it into what you're doing. So what Jason does, being in system as a service, is he is taking the code. So he will buy the software development kits from OpenAI, from these other companies. He brings it in, puts it on the platform, and then connects it all together. So he buys the software development kit, integrates it with the software. So, SDKs can be like 25,000, whatever. Depends on what it is. This feature, we now offer this, and you can continue accumulating those. And it's so efficient that software that may have taken I'll give you an example. Last company that I worked for, they probably have a software budget approaching $250,000 every year. We're able to offer software that can do more than that current software to any business for $100 a month. So that really changes the digital landscape, because everything that your business needs to do can be consolidated to one location. So that's why they're calling this now digital real estate. You have these areas, these businesses that occupy space on the internet, and they're just going to continue to grow and grow and grow. So Jason right now, he has some temporary monetary concerns, because he's like, yeah, you got to run a business, you got to provide for your family and all, right? But his real goal when we're talking with clients is to get them onboarded to our software so that they're fully integrated with it. And then you want to have your client and you want to keep them there forever, because it's like owning real estate. So, for example, if you've got say a flooring company, I've had one of those. They've got a website that's generating them leads and leads and leads, right? And they've got an automated system of sending out emails, following up with customers and all. That is the valuable part of their business. You don't even need a storefront anymore. But you buy a storefront so that you can get the customers that walk through the area, right? In the same way, whoever owns it, it's going to be worth a lot in 15 years. So Jason likes to have his cities. He just wants to be landlord. He's got the cities, and then you build the house on the city. You keep the keys. Like he's content to have people in the future hire your own person to manage your site if you want to. If not, I can put you people in touch with people. You can have all your own processes. You can control everything, but it's just going to be within my digital real estate sphere. So he switched from physical to completely virtual. So that's the vision.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do in the future. So if anybody wants to use you guys, how can they contact you?
Yeah, you can go to themybrand.com and talk to a sales representative. You can reach out to me directly through LinkedIn, Samuel Gross. That'd probably be the easiest way to reach me. But yeah, it's been really great. It's great service to a lot of small businesses, especially that I know a lot of my concerns starting out a business were like, how am I going to take credit card payments? And you can relate to that too, I imagine,
definitely.
MP group. So yeah, absolutely. So reach out to me through LinkedIn, reach out through the website, get something going.
And a last piece of advice for anybody that's wanting to get into the entrepreneurial world.
Yeah. I can't go a whole podcast without telling a funny story. So I'm going to tell a story, and I'll give you this piece of advice. This is my proudest week from my second summer was week 9. So it was a week before I was about to leave, and I'd done pretty well right towards the end there. So I was feeling pretty satisfied. I'm like, man, this is going to be a big week. I've sold so much the last 2 weeks. This one's going to be awesome. And what you have to do if you want to be a salesperson, be an entrepreneur, is just push through no matter what, because you're going to encounter a lot of just BS situations and a lot of problems. And you just have to have the mentality of like, I eat problems for breakfast. Like I used to tell my roommates in the morning, like, guys, I'm feeling really, really hungry because I eat problems for breakfast and I haven't had any problems so far today. But week 9 of my second summer, I had the most problems in a week. It might be a competitor for most in human history, because I remember going to work on Monday. I wear glasses. I was wearing contacts at the time. I got this eye infection. So I was like, my eyes are red and stingy. I was like, man, I still have to talk to people at the door. So I was, gosh, this is going to be painful. And Monday morning, I'm working in an area that is called, I was in Illinois that summer. I was working in Jacksonville, but I found out I was actually in South Jacksonville when the police stopped me and kicked me out of where I was. I was like, oh shoot, I messed up. So I have to go work these country areas. And I had a lot of momentum. I was doing really well, South Jacksonville. And now I sell like nothing on Monday, nothing on Tuesday. And then there's big corporate competition where I almost win it. And then I'm out Friday morning. And Wednesday and Thursday, both days, my car breaks down, which I'm using to get around. And Wednesday, it takes me 3 hours to repair it. Pretty handy. So I take care of it myself, get back to work. Thursday, it breaks down badly. So I actually have to find a new place to live because I'm an hour away from home. And I don't have anything with me. I'm like, I've got my toiletry case, thankfully, because I had the eye infection, I needed to have all my contact stuff with me. So that was lucky, but I didn't have any, any clothes, nothing, but I really, really needed to keep going the next, 3 days. Cause like, this is so valuable. This is the end of my summer. This is like when you're supposed to be cashing the check, right? And people knew me, they were expecting me. So I ended up wearing the same clothes for 3 days of selling. I managed to find a new place to live on Thursday morning when my car broke down at 8 a.m. I had a new place to live. I remember checking my watch when I left the house. It was someone that I had met a few days earlier that I stayed with the next couple days. It was 11:17 in the morning, and I still managed to have, I sold twice as much as I did any week of my first summer. So I came into the Sunday meeting that Sunday, just around all the other, salespeople that I hadn't seen. And I hadn't, you live with your roommates over the summer, but I hadn't come home for 3 days. They're like, dude, where were you? And I'm like, Yeah. It just felt like a beast. But, yeah, that's really like the mentality that you have to have towards it. If you want to be successful in sales, if you want to have success in entrepreneurship, you need to create your vision and your goals that you have for yourself and stick to them and follow through. So that's the best advice I could give.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well,
yeah.
Thank you so much for coming in, Sam.
Yeah,
I
thank
really
you. This is fun.
appreciate you. Y'all make sure to go check out Sam and everything that you guys are doing. If you guys need any software help or anything, just hit him up. But thank you again.
Cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, you've been awesome.